All right, Nick, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. This is a team on a little bit of a 3-game winning streak. The last 2 games especially have been absolutely stellar. Ever since the bye, the Rams have looked back on track, potentially getting their way back into playoff contention, looking really good. But I think there's one key to this Rams team, specifically on the offensive side of the ball, stepped up their play and has made this team click, and that is the offensive line. It has been stellar these last 2 games, especially. Let's get in the article and we can talk about it on the other side. This, of course, is over on Turf Show Times. It says the Los Angeles Rams picked up a huge win against the Cleveland Browns on Sunday, propelling them back into playoff contention. A lot of the success the Rams had against the vaunted Browns defensive line was in large part due to their stellar play of their offensive line, which has really seemed to come together as a unit in the past few weeks. The Browns are currently ranked 6th in total defense, as well as just outside of top 10 in sacks with 34 total sacks on the season. However, on Sunday, the Rams offensive line was able to keep QB Matthew Stafford's jersey clean, allowing 0 sacks for the second week in a row. It was a particularly impressive game by left tackle Larry Jackson, who was tasked with blocking perennial Defensive Player of the Year nominee Myles Garrett all day long. Garrett is currently ranked 4th in the entire NFL for sacks, totaling 13 this season so far. The Browns' defensive end gave the Rams credit on their game plan in stopping him. Garrett, although was playing through a shoulder injury sustained last week, when asked about the injury, said, "It didn't affect me that much." He continued to say, "They just had a great game plan for us up front." I think that's what we've been seeing ever since the bye, Nick. This Rams offensive line has completely transformed. They have been stellar. This Browns defense, this is the coup d'etat. This is what you want to see, especially going to Baltimore, another tough defense. But beating out Myles Garrett, being able to keep Matthew Stafford clean, no sacks the last 2 weeks, this is very, very impressive stuff from the Rams offensive line. But as I alluded to, Rams fans, we want to hear from you in the comment section below. You're playing the Ravens next weekend. Let us know, what do you think the score of that game is going to be? But Nick, I want to know what you think, our offensive line expert. What do you think of the Rams offensive line, and how has this elevated their play this season?
So I think there's 2 parts of this that are really crazy to think about. And the first thing is the personnel side. And we'll focus on that first. Because if you look at the Rams starting 5, this isn't from like their Super Bowl era, right? None of these guys really jump off the page. Avila's having a really nice rookie year, but again, it's not like he was a top 10 pick. Kevin Dotson, the trade from the Steelers kind of gave him away. Look, I think Alaric Jackson has surprised a lot of people, but no one really thinks of him as an elite left tackle. You got Brian Allen at center. I think he's okay, but he's kind of a feisty guy. And you got Havenstein to round it out at right tackle. So again, it's not like a group that when you look at it on paper and you say, yeah, they're not really that talented, I don't think they'll be that great. But the reality is they found these guys to mesh together. I think Avila's been a steal. I think Dotson's been kind of a great big time physical presence for them up front. I think the way they meshed and kind of created a whole greater than the sum of the parts on the offensive line, specifically with his 2 new acquisitions of Avila and Dotson this season, has been a huge win for the Rams. So credit the front office for getting that done, again, without spending a whole lot of draft capital, because obviously they have had very little of that over the past few years. But I want to give some credit to Sean McVay and what he's done in terms of retooling the offense. Because when he traded for Matthew Stafford a few years ago, the whole predicate was they need to be more aggressive down the field, deep targets, throwing the ball down the field, play action, sit in the pocket, take a few hitches, and deliver a 20, 30-yard strike. That's exactly how Sean McVay wanted his offense to run. He loves his wide zone running schemes. He loves to play action boots off of it, but he needed a quarterback who could sit in the pocket, hang in the pocket for a long time, and deliver deep shots down the field. But the one issue the Rams have had specifically last season and at times this season is their pass protection isn't quite good enough to handle that. So the Rams, to kind of counter that, on top of their better upgrades on the offensive line, they've adjusted their game plan. Sean McVay has tweaked his offense ever so slightly, and you see in the numbers. So according to Next Gen Stats, in 2021, Matthew Stafford had the 20th, that's again bottom third, fastest release time in the NFL. This season right now, he's 9th in the NFL fastest release time. And if you look at PFF, with that average depth of target this season, Matthew Stafford is 17th. Again, right around average. Again, McVay, when he brought Stafford into the fold, wanted that to be around top 5, top 8. So we're seeing McVay recognize what he needs to do up front to help out his offensive line, which again is playing better than expected. But I think at this point, they're not elite by itself. Credit Sean McVay for taking a better than expected group in this offensive line and putting them in positions to be successful. And I think that's what it really means when you have a good organization and good coach. And that's exactly why the Rams find themselves in the playoff picture. Their organization, their front office made two good additions, Avila and Dotson, and their coach put them in positions to be successful, shorter dropbacks, quicker throws. We've seen it over the last 3 weeks. They've been very successful. And I tell you what, Miles, looking at this offensive line, look at this team in general. I don't think there's a team that wants to play the Rams right now. They have the defensive playmakers. They've got the offensive playmakers. McVay has done a great job adjusting his scheme. They're a terrifying force, I think, down the stretch run in the NFC.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with you. This offensive line, this offense is a sum of the parts type effect coming down the stretch here. I really think everything, as far as coaching, as far as players, everyone meshing together, this seems like a team that's really starting to come together at the right time. And this is the perfect time for them too. Obviously, the last 5 games of the season, you got the first or next game rather is the Ravens. That's going to be a tough defense. Last game of the season, week 18, you play the 49ers at the 49ers. Obviously, that's going to be a tough one as well. In between, a little bit easier, Commanders, Saints, Giants. But I think this Rams team is getting good at the right time. And if I was the Rams, I wouldn't be too afraid of these defenses, especially the Ravens and the 49ers, because you just went up against one of the best defenses in the NFL in the Cleveland Browns. You put up 36 points, and you had a field day, no sacks allowed whatsoever. So, Nick, I think this Rams team's coming together at the right time. Their playoff push is coming. Matthew Stafford's coming back to his old self. Sean McVay is calling some really great football right now. I just think this team, everything is clicking. And this is exactly the time that you want things to happen. Last 5-6 games of the season, really start to work up, get yourself primed and ready for a potential wild card playoff push. I think this is really great stuff by the Rams.